"Get out of here, you useless old fool who can't even do housework." Those were the harsh words hurled at me by my eldest son's wife, despite the fact that my husband and I contribute $2,000 to the household every month. Enduring her verbal abuse had become unbearable. Finally, we reached our limit. I, Miranda, a 62-year-old housewife who also works part-time, reside with my husband Jack, a man of the same age. Jack, a serious and kind salary worker, and I have never had any major conflicts. Our son, Ronald, 32, shares his father's compassionate nature and strong sense of justice. After graduating from university, he secured a job at a reputable company where he met Alice, his wife of 2 years. Initially, Alice seemed like a serious and charming woman, well regarded by her colleagues for her dedication. However, her true nature began to reveal itself gradually. At a family gathering, her drastic transformation stunned everyone. From a modest and demure appearance, she morphed into someone almost unrecognizable: flashy makeup, blonde hair, and loud jewelry. Her behavior at the gathering, particularly when intoxicated, was appalling. She insulted everyone present, including my husband and me, with vicious words. Despite Ronald's attempts to defuse the situation, Alice's outbursts continued unabated. Her behavior left a sour taste in everyone's mouths, prompting some relatives to question her past and character. Was this the same woman Ronald had married, or was there more to her than met the eye? I accepted the relative's suggestion to delve deeper into Alice's background, feeling a sense of unease after witnessing her disruptive behavior. Ronald, sensing something amiss, pledged to investigate thoroughly. Since Alice had lost her parents and appeared to have little contact with other relatives, we opted to enlist the help of a private detective. The investigation uncovered startling revelations about Alice's past. During her middle school years, she had been a troublemaker, even leading a gang of notorious delinquents who followed her lead. Despite her eventual graduation from a prestigious university and the semblance of seriousness she projected, she hadn't completely severed ties with her delinquent past. Shockingly, she still invited her troublesome friends over when Ronald was away, causing disturbances in the neighborhood and prompting complaints to the apartment management. Ronald was devastated by the discovery. Even contemplating divorce, he was met with Alice's tearful apologies and promises of change. She begged for forgiveness, vowing to live earnestly and demonstrating her sincerity by deleting contacts of her delinquent friends and reaching out to apologize to those she had troubled. Witnessing her genuine remorse, Ronald's resolve wavered. Seeing her revert to her former serious demeanor, he reconsidered his stance on their marriage. While it remained a private matter between them, as parents, Jack and I chose to respect Ronald's decision, opting not to interfere. Later, I encountered Alice again in the summer, and she appeared to have returned to the serious, composed woman I had first met, reaffirming her commitment to change. I breathed a sigh of relief, believing that everything would be all right. However, fate had other plans. While lifting a heavy load during my part-time job, a sudden, excruciating pain shot through my back, immobilizing me. Rushed to the hospital by a concerned coworker, I received the diagnosis of severe low back pain, requiring me to take a break. Upon sharing the news with Ronald over the phone, he proposed that my husband and I move in with him and Alice, citing our increasing age and the likelihood of future injuries and illnesses. The idea had its merits, offering reassurance of having family nearby in times of need. It seemed like a logical choice. Once my back pain subsided, my husband and I discussed the proposition with Ronald and Alice, ultimately deciding to merge households. With a relatively spacious home, accommodating them posed no issue. Initially, the arrangement went smoothly, with Alice sharing household responsibilities, lightening my load. To ease the financial strain, my husband and I contributed $2,000 monthly from our salaries, despite it stretching my part-time income. However, over time, Alice's behavior shifted. She began complaining of poor health, yet her actions contradicted her claims. Despite confronting her, she grew defensive and hostile. It became evident that her remorse was insincere. She had merely feigned it to maintain her relationship with Ronald. Her demeanor mirrored her past as a delinquent, using intimidation to assert dominance. Fearful but determined, I resolved to no longer tolerate her manipulative behavior. If asked whether I feared Alice, I'd have to admit yes, to a degree. I may have reached 62 years of age, but that longevity didn't come without resilience. I refused to be cowed by the antics of a former delinquent. Maintaining an air of indifference to her words and actions, I calmly warned her of the consequences of her harassment. If your behavior crosses a line, it could constitute a crime. I am not your servant to be pushed around. Should you harm me, I will not hesitate to involve the authorities, I stated icily. Her reaction was a mix of surprise and defiance. Shut up, you old nuisance. I won't forgive you, she retorted with a loud scream, catching the attention of my husband and Ronald, who had been home for the holiday. After a brief explanation of the situation, we decided to address it together. My husband wasted no time in demanding an apology from Alice. However, she showed no intention of remorse, instead crossing her arms defiantly. Why should I apologize to this old fool? She sneered. I agreed to live together under the assumption that she'd handle the chores. But she's been utterly useless. There's nothing wrong with being angry at such incompetence, she added callously. Her selfishness left us speechless. Then she went on to make even more outrageous demands, declaring that we would all serve her from now on, dismissing my husband and me as burdensome and unnecessary. It was a blatant display of disrespect and entitlement, leaving us stunned by her audacity. My frustration reached its breaking point, boiling over into anger. I was done tolerating this woman's behavior and resolved to teach her a lesson. Surprisingly, my usually calm husband shared my intense anger. Let's move out, he said firmly, echoing my sentiments. Eager to escape Alice's presence, I agreed without hesitation. Hastily packing our essentials, we left the house, informing them that we would return later for our larger belongings. Ronald remained behind, presumably to confront Alice. With no alternative residence lined up and unwilling to burden relatives, we sought refuge in a nearby budget hotel. The uncertainty of our living situation weighed heavily on us, but we remained determined to find a new home. The next morning, my phone incessantly buzzed with calls from Alice. Reluctantly, I answered only to be greeted by her artificially sweet tone. It was clear she had an ulterior motive, and her insincerity turned my stomach. Her sudden shift in demeanor left me questioning how many personalities she possessed. Regardless, one thing was certain. Alice was not to be trusted, regardless of which persona she presented. I reached a point where dealing with her seemed futile and absurd. I simply declined her call and blocked all avenues of communication, ensuring she couldn't reach me. My husband, observing my actions, followed suit, understanding the need for a clean break. Together, we made the decision to sever all ties with Alice. Later that afternoon, Ronald called me with unexpected news. He had divorced Alice. He recounted how she had challenged him to proceed with the divorce, prompting him to follow through without hesitation. Proud of my son's decisive action, I firmly believed he had made the right choice. There was no way he could find happiness with someone like her. Ronald shared that Alice's attempts to manipulate him with her cutesy act had only reinforced his decision. Despite her claims of intelligence and education, Alice's behavior betrayed immaturity and arrogance. Cutting ties with her was undoubtedly the best course of action. However, the story didn't end there. To my astonishment, Ronald revealed that Alice had been cheating on him. Despite her professed illness and frequent outings, she had maintained a facade of health while carrying on an affair. Hiring a detective agency confirmed my suspicions, providing photographic evidence of her infidelity. As I scrolled through the photos Ronald sent, disbelief washed over me. There she was, locked in an embrace with a young man, a stark contrast to her pretense of innocence. It was evident that Alice's deceit ran deeper than we had imagined. I was resolute about seeking compensation for the damages caused by Alice's actions, including the affair with her cheating partner. I had made this clear to her, yet she remained unfazed, exuding confidence. It left me puzzled why she would call me, perhaps to ascertain my whereabouts, assuming I hadn't left. Her attempt to act tough seemed futile now that I had indeed departed. I harbored no intention of extending help to her. She needed to face the consequences of her actions alone. With our new living arrangement settled, my husband, Ronald, and I opted to reside together in a certain apartment. While we contemplated evicting Alice and occupying our previous home, its size and upkeep were impractical for Ronald alone. Selling the house emerged as the most sensible option, with Ronald in agreement, indifferent to the sentimental value of a single-family home. As we returned to retrieve our belongings, Alice greeted us with an unsettling smile, extending a brazen proposal to live together once more. Her audacity infuriated me, especially without an ounce of remorse or apology. My anger surged, echoed by my husband's cold rejection. We made it clear she needed to vacate the premises promptly and compensate Ronald for the damages incurred. Her disregard for our feelings and her own actions extinguished any remaining affection I have for her. I remained steadfast in my decision not to reconcile, making it clear to Alice. Ronald echoed my sentiments, expressing his own anger towards her. Yet, in a seemingly futile attempt, Alice abruptly ceased her pretense of innocence. She confessed to initially being drawn to Ronald's stability and the prospect of a comfortable life as a housewife. However, she claimed to have no ulterior motives now, professing genuine love and appreciation for us, her in-laws, Miranda and Jack. But her words, no matter how eloquent, only fueled our anger further. Our relative, who had been observing silently, intervened, confronting Alice with a sharp gaze and an aura of strength. He challenged her to confront him directly, revealing his own background in boxing, having competed in national championships. It was a bold move, orchestrated intentionally by me, as a preemptive measure in case Alice caused trouble. Cornered by his assertiveness, Alice appeared intimidated, relenting under his forceful demeanor. With firm insistence, he demanded her immediate departure and a sincere apology, warning her never to involve herself with us again. Seemingly cowed by his resolve, Alice agreed, promising to leave promptly and offering her furniture and other belongings as restitution. She apologized sincerely, quickly gathering her belongings and leaving the house. Observing her hasty retreat, the relative chuckled triumphantly, remarking on her tendency to assert dominance over the weaker but crumble when faced with someone stronger. A clear sign of her lack of backbone. Ronald, my husband, and I couldn't help but laugh as we watched her flee. With the intruder gone, our move to the new home proceeded smoothly. Meanwhile, Alice rented an apartment and began living alone. Ronald pursued compensation as he had declared, leading to prompt payments from both Alice and her affair partner, likely prompted by legal notices. As the relative had pointed out, Alice was unable to stand up to those stronger than herself. Since then, I've had no contact with her, but I've kept tabs on her through the news and acquaintances. Recent reports detailed her downward spiral, depleted savings from compensation payments, failed attempts to secure support from her disappearing lover, and a tumultuous stint at a general company that ended in resignation after conflicts with her boss. Unabashed, she resorted to begging for money at our workplace, but we chose to ignore her pleas. Despite leaning on her delinquent friends, she found no solace, eventually resorting to assaulting one of them, resulting in her arrest and imprisonment. Upon hearing her story, both my husband and Ronald agreed that prison might be the best place for someone like her. It's evident she hadn't truly reflected on her actions, despite feigning remorse. Now, I'm enjoying peaceful days with my family, planning holidays together in our smaller, more manageable apartment near the station. Moving was undoubtedly the right decision, and I look forward to continuing to live peacefully with my loved ones.